Harry James Green, Jr., African-American chemical engineer. Born 1911, couldn't find any sources on whether he's alive or dead. Harry James Green, Jr. pursued a highly successful professional career in engineering despite obstacles posed both by racism and by the Depression. He was born in St. Louis, Missouri on December 7, 1911, the son of Harry James Green, Sr. and the former Olivia Jones. His father was a clerk in the U.S. Post Office. His mother was a housewife. Although the young Green grew up within the segregated school system of St. Louis, he nevertheless found opportunity. Quote, "In high school, I took the scientific course," unquote, he told contributor T.A. Heppenheimer in a telephone interview conducted on May 7, 1998. Quote, "Most of the young men took manual training. They were more or less encouraged to do so, but I didn't want that," unquote. His courses included college algebra. He also made good use of the city's public library. He even built a steam engine while in high school and used it to drive a boat. Green graduated from high school in 1928 and entered Ohio State University. He chose chemical engineering as his major, picking this field with a shrewd eye to his prospects within a segregated nation. He knew that this field was expanding rapidly amid strong growth of both the petroleum industry and the production of industrial chemicals. He nevertheless anticipated that even with a degree in this subject, racial prejudice might prevent him from working as a chemical engineer. But he was aware that America's black colleges offered positions to teachers of chemistry, and he expected that he might win such a position if he could not work as an engineer. He graduated from Ohio State in 1932 with a degree of Bachelor of Chemical Engineering. Then, as he tells Heppenheimer, he, quote, couldn't get a job in industry, unquote. This involved more than racism, for the nation was in the depths of the Depression. Graduates with even the best qualifications had to take whatever they could get. Unable to find a job in engineering, Green nevertheless won a position as an instructor in chemistry at North Carolina Agricultural and Technical College, which was one of the black institutions on which he had expected to rely. It served as his base during the subsequent 10 years. In 1937, he received a fellowship from the General Education Board and entered a graduate program at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, emerging in 1938 with a Master of Science degree. This qualified him for promotion to assistant professor at North Carolina A&T. In 1941, he returned to Ohio State to study, with support from a Julius Rosenwald Fellowship. He received a Ph.D. in chemical engineering 2 years later. Green's dissertation dealt with the chemical process of dialysis, which separates substances in solution by arranging for them to diffuse through a membrane. During subsequent decades, this process gained great importance in medicine, for it made possible the construction of artificial kidneys that could remove waste products from the blood. Green did not contribute to this medical work, but complied with terms of his doctoral program by returning for a final year at North Carolina A&T. Here he received another promotion to full professor. Then in 1944, with industry booming during World War II, he left this college to pursue, at last, a career in chemical engineering. Green joined the firm of Stromberg Carlson, a builder of radios in Rochester, New York. He remained with this company through the next quarter century as it merged with the firm of General Dynamics and became that corporation's electronics division. Green worked in research on materials. He particularly recalls contributing to improvements in telephone transmitters. We speak into a transmitter whenever we talk on the phone. It uses carbon granules and converts the vibrations of speech into an electrical signal. Green worked with anthracite coal as a source for the carbon, as it was both readily available and offered high purity. He came in at the level of senior engineer in 1959. He was promoted to supervisor of manufacturing research and development within the production engineering department. In 1967, following the merger with General Dynamics, he became a principal engineer in microelectronics. Then in 1970, the electronics division moved from Rochester to San Diego, California. Green stayed in Rochester and joined the Xerox Corporation as a staff scientist within the firm's research department. He remained at Xerox until he retired in 1976. Research in materials engineering was an ongoing activity for him during his career in industry. At Stromberg Carlson, he directed work on metals, with emphasis on magnetic materials used in electronics. He joined the American Society of Metals and was a member of a group that edited a handbook on metallurgy. He also served as chairman of a group that wrote a review of the use of copper alloys. He went on to conduct studies of the electrical properties of plastics and of the packaging of microelectronic circuits. In 1939, he married Ruth Williams. They had 2 children, Richard and Harry James Green III. He and his wife continued to live in Rochester, where he has remained active by teaching at the Rochester Institute of Technology. In his youth, he faced severe difficulties due to race prejudice, while the Depression made things worse. He nevertheless won his way to academic achievement and to a highly successful professional career. Today, amid prosperity and with opportunities for Black people having expanded greatly, he urges others to take heart from his accomplishments. As he told Heppenheimer, quote, "You have to move into whatever the situation is, regardless of your barriers." Citations are in the description.